Let's look at two issues. So the Western society allowed sex outside marriage to deal with, you've reached puberty, you have these urges, so Western society allowed it. In Islam, it's forbidden, it's haram to have sex outside marriage. So how could we tell somebody who's reached puberty at 14, wait till you're 30, which is 16 years old, to go and have sex? It's closing our eyes against nature. And that's why Islam encourages people to get married young. Get married young does not mean don't go to school. I have known people who got married and went to universities and they're very successful. Actually, as a businessman, I've analyzed and I found young Muslims who got married young, and there's preconditions. They are much more successful than those who's waiting the 25 or 30, because Islam says do it together, build it together, and that's the real success. You have a comment, sorry?
Well, what I was going to say, it's not just true among Muslims. I know a lot of Christians and I know a lot of Jews who also get married at an early age because of the different background. Maybe they're Catholics and they do not believe in sex before marriage. And so this is like a human thing, and I totally agree with you. And
it's not me, it's Islam, by the way. Islam is the one who tells us, encourages us to get married.
Just one point I want to highlight from an Islamic point of view. The reason people are delaying the marriage because it's recommended.
No, it's who recommends
let me just finish my point.
Why is it recommended?
But you didn't even say anything.
We have to deal with the issue is if you tell people wait 15 years to get married to have sex, guess what? They will have it outside of marriage. And this is a haram. No, honestly, we have to deal with Islamic issues and wake up to realities of human nature. And human nature, you reach puberty and you have an urge to have sex. To tell people wait for a year or two is fine. To tell them wait for 16, 17 years, you're telling people go and commit adultery, which is totally unacceptable.
And how do you make it work? How do you make it work in a society?
I wanted to say,
sorry?
I don't understand how you make it work in a society. I don't understand how, as a 16-year-old, you can get married and live out.
So, get married at 17, 18, huh? Why?
I just don't see it in the society.
Why don't you see it? What's the wrong thing?
The key point in marriage is when you get married, you have to be able to support that wife, and you have to be support that house that you're creating.
That's the cultural things we're facing.
It's not.
No, honestly, it's cultural things. We've created this. Get the degree, be a doctor and engineer, support your marriage.
And who creates
he's talking about getting a degree and this and that. I think he's talking about being a good provider, a husband and a father who's able to provide for his family. And I understand.
So
I totally understand.
But
it's not about the culture.
Is there anyone here who thinks that can work?
Brother Ashraf,
how can you sustain a marriage if you don't have enough money?
We have to look at the times we're living in. We have to look at the times we're living in.
And that's why I look at the society we're living in. Honestly, look at the society we're living in.
I agree with you.
There is two people, they get together, they go and live together, they call it common law, and they work hard to build themselves.
But that's a non-Muslim example that you're taking.
Is this two young people get married Islamically and go and build it together.
Well, so
it does happen, though. You know what? To reinforce this point, it does happen. Like I've known friends who've done it, and they live with their parents, and they go to university
and they were
together.
Successful,
and so
by the way.
It happens. Well,
it does
not
work
all the time, but it does happen. Right?
Exactly.
It does happen. But I mean,
but what's the alternative? Find me an alternative. To tell a young person wait 16, 17 years. Do you think that's really acceptable in real life?
Abstinence is the alternative.
No, sorry, Islam does not support abstinence.
Well, abstinence to an age.
I think what we're not understanding is that there's a lot of circumstances that different individuals face. Every individual faces different circumstances. And it depends on your economic situation, it depends on the community you're in. It also depends on age. Because today, in the second millennium, I mean, there are so many outlets. The Muslim community in 2007 is a far cry from the Muslim community of 1977.
So there's so many sex issues, which is most Muslims close their eyes as if we are Muslims, we don't want sex.
I totally agree with you.
Don't talk about it. That's why Islam says you reach puberty, a couple of years later, you should get married. The alternatives is what we see, a lot of single parents, a lot of things, that's the alternative.
Well, I think, Brother Ashraf, one of the problems that we have is in this society where you will not be able to economically support yourself, much less a family, if you got your own household. But I think what you're saying is get married, but live with your parents, be supported by your family. So So that's one solution. If that's not acceptable to people, then they'll run into problems, because at 16, 17, 18, it would be very hard to support a family.
Should we tell the people wait till you're 27, 28, 29?
Well,
but not everyone has that option. Like if you're an immigrant child, you know, if you're an immigrant family, you come in, you don't have housing. Sometimes you don't have food. So you don't. Not everyone has that option. There are some who do.
Let's look at the options. We have gotten used to be spoiled in a way. I got married when I was 21, and I worked hard. Alhamdulillah, I built myself. Why are we telling everybody you have to have the car, you have to have the home, you have to... Let me give you some news. Why not start with zero, you and your soulmate, future soulmate, and build it together?
Ashraf, I have a question for you.
That's my point.
I agree with you.
It's not a realistic dream, though.
You should not base your decision on material possessions. Marriage is not based on material possessions, having a house and a car, and etc., etc. It's based on just... I don't think you can really base it on anything. You will marry when that person comes along. At first opportunity, when you meet that right person, you will marry. I really don't believe people are purposely delaying marriage forever.
I'm not saying to force anybody to get married sooner or later. I am saying we should cater to nature and open our minds and accept that marrying young is a healthy thing. It's not
absolutely a
I will
healthy
agree
thing.
with you on one point, but I will disagree as well. And I'll tell you both. I'll agree on the point where couples should not be waiting for that long, that a man is probably in his 30s where he is like well settled in the eyes of the society or family, whatever the criteria might be. Similarly, a marriage should not be based on the fact that you know, just for the purpose of sex at an early age.
I didn't say that, but I'm saying we have to put it as a factor.
That is a factor. However, you know, we will look at the middle road, right? We should not be like waiting too long where the guy is like all settled, and unless he drives a BMW and owns a house, we're not giving away our daughter. Right?
How young does people graduate these days? 21, 22?
22.
So why not get married then? Or encourage people to get married?
Some people do get married at 22, some people at 24, some people at 30. It's a question, again, we're facing the same challenges that we talked about and being able to bring solutions. That's all what we talked about. Like having those...
I'll give you, young man, the final word because we're running out of time.
You know, I think it really comes down to, you know, we mentioned intention so many times, and it's like, what are we getting married for? You know, you said, what's the purpose of getting married? Are we getting married to fulfill some personal desire of having a soulmate, or getting married to be, you know, it's half of your iman, so you're doing it for your iman. Do you want a wife that you're going to take and sit beside the movies, or she wakes you up for Fajr and you pray beside her?
Well, we've run out of time. Thank you for a great ending. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.